Welcome back. You are live with BBC News. We have continuing coverage of events in the Middle East as that conflict escalates. Let's talk now to Jeremy Konyndyk, who is the president of Refugee International. It's an independent global humanitarian organisation. Before joining Refugees International, Jeremy served in the Biden administration as USAID's lead official for COVID-19. Thank you for being with us, Jeremy. And I want to talk particularly about that evacuation that is going on right now. There are just maybe 3 hours until that deadline for more than 1 million people to leave the northern part of the Gaza Strip. Is it even remotely possible that everybody who wants to leave can leave?
No, it's not remotely possible. And it is impossible on several levels. It is impossible to do in a way that is legal. It is impossible to do in a way that is logistically feasible. It is impossible to do in a way that is remotely safe, supported, or secure. There is simply no humanitarian infrastructure, even if this were a lawful order, which we maintain it is not, and the ICRC and others have also called that out. Even if it were, there's no humanitarian infrastructure in the territory to remotely support and enable something like this in a remotely secure way.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to ask. Many people, we're looking at images now of these people on the move, many thousands of them obeying that order to move. Where will they go?
They will have to squat out in the open to a large extent. I come from a humanitarian response background. I've worked in many fast onset refugee and disaster settings. Normally, in that sort of a situation, you would ramp up a huge humanitarian response, even for a few thousand people, much less for up to 1 million or over 1 million. You would want to be setting up emergency shelter. You would need to be setting up water points, food distribution, medical facilities. None of that is in place. And more pointedly, none of that can remotely be put in place either on the timeline that's being discussed here or even beyond it, because Israel and Egypt are not allowing humanitarian aid to go into the province, or into the territory, excuse me. And the Rafah border crossing that accesses the south of the territory is closed and has been bombarded multiple times by Israeli airstrikes. So there is simply no feasible pathway to getting the kind of support in that would make this less of a catastrophe than it would inevitably be.
Yes, and we heard earlier from US officials appearing somewhat to backtrack on that idea to let those from Gaza flee into Egypt. They say they didn't see wide support for it, instead pushing for so-called safe areas within Gaza itself. How significant is that apparent U-turn?
Well, I think that the question of whether people would even want to go into Egypt, whether they would feel confident that they would eventually be able to go back into Gaza, is very, very fraught and very unclear. And I think that you see that in some of the backtracking of those statements. What is not ambiguous is that at minimum that crossing should be open for humanitarian aid. It should be open for urgent medical evacuation. And that's not even possible right.
We've been talking tonight, some of our production team, in touch with a number of people who are trying to evacuate. One of them telling our team that they have found a house in the country, but they will share it with 49 other people. They say they have food for just 3 days, among them people with medical problems, many kids, children there. What help is available? You talk about the restrictions on aid getting into Gaza. What help, if any, is available for people who are fleeing?
Well, there's virtually nothing. And I think more to the point, there is no way that aid can offset the mass denial of basic public services. When the electricity is turned off, there's not an aid solution to that. When the water is turned off, there is not an aid solution to that. When food imports are blocked and held up, there's not an aid solution to that. Aid only works when it can complement the basic functioning of an economy and of a system. And when that is being purposefully obstructed, which it is right now for the entire civilian population of Gaza, roughly half of whom are children, there's no way that aid can really soften that blow in a meaningful way.
Jeremy, thank you for your assessment of what's going on right now. It's good to have you with us. That's Jeremy Konyndyk, who's the president of Refugee International. Thank you.